All of us have someone to thank for coming to our rescue at a difficult time in life. It may have been a time when we became lost, confused, and afraid. It may have been a time when the changes of life were not what we wanted, and we simply could not cope. It was then that someone came. We sat with them, maybe ate with them, perhaps even wept with them. But in the end, we walked away better for their support. It is some weeks after the terrible and mysterious events of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. Peter and 6 disciples have returned to the sea. They have left Jerusalem. They have come home to the Sea of Galilee, the place where it all began. Discipleship, the upper room, the cross, the empty tomb, the house with its locked doors are some 130 kilometers to the south. They are devastated, deeply depressed, and immobilized. Yet there comes a moment when Peter decides he is going fishing. He definitely still knows how to do that. Perhaps his decision takes him back to the life before Jesus. The others are quick to join him. My hunch, however, is that Peter is not really trying to catch fish as much as he is fishing for answers. We can leave the places and even the people of our lives, but we can never escape ourselves or our life. Peter may have left Jerusalem, but he cannot get away from those 3 years of discipleship, the Last Supper, the arrest, the charcoal fire, denials, and a crowing rooster. He cannot leave behind the cross, the empty tomb, the house with his doors locked tight, the echoes of peace be with you. And so he fishes. Peter fishes for answers. What have I done? What were those 3 years about? Who was Jesus? Where is he? Who am I? What will I do now? Where will I go? What will happen to me? Peter is searching for meaning, a way forward, a place of life. Peter is fishing in the dark for answers. We have all spent time fishing in the dark for answers, asking the same questions as Peter, looking for our place in life, seeking peace and some sense of understanding and meaning. More often than not, our dark night of fishing happens in the context of personal or professional loss, crisis, and the sorrows of life. It happens when we come face to face with the things we have done or left undone. We have all been there, fishing for answers in the dark. When dawn comes, a voice calls to Peter and the other disciples from the shore John immediately recognizes the voice. It is Jesus. "Children, you have no fish, have you?" Jesus says. This is more a statement of fact than a question. Jesus is commenting on the reality and the emptiness of Peter's and the other disciples' lives. After sharing breakfast together, Jesus calls Peter aside. Jesus asks him no less than 3 times if Peter loves him. Each time Peter replies, showing increasing indignation at the repeated question. Can you imagine the inner struggle, the pain, the searing and searching that must have been going on inside of Peter's heart during this conversation? Peter might have felt conflicted about Jesus' resurrection. Of course, he was filled with joy at the prospect that Jesus was alive, but was he also afraid after how totally he denied Jesus in the critical hour? Guilty, embarrassed, wondering if Jesus would still want anything to do with him, wondering if he would still be used by God, used by Jesus for ministry. Was Peter wondering if he messed up beyond redeeming? And so I think it is no accident that Jesus asked him this question, "Do you love me?" 3 times, just as Peter had 3 times denied even knowing Jesus. It is an act of graciousness on Jesus' part. He is letting Peter know that he is forgiven, and he's given Peter a chance to say out loud that he is committed still to being a disciple. It brings Peter full circle. Yes, Peter messed up, but yes, there is grace. And Jesus needs to help Peter move on from his self-doubt, move on from wallowing in his own mistakes, and move on to the next chapter in his life. Peter's story throughout the Gospels is a story of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back faith. Perhaps it's a story many of us can relate to as Peter blunders and stumbles, but eventually becomes a rock of faith. When Jesus tells Peter to feed his sheep, he is directing Peter toward the care of God's humanity. Here on this beach, Jesus is putting Peter back together again, restoring his self-esteem, returning to him his love and responsibility for all God's people. Why give back love and self-esteem to one who has been broken? Because Jesus, who understands human nature, knows that the capacity for compassion will likely be found where there has been a struggle for life. To be broken by life and then climb back can often be a source of great strength and resilience, deep love and commitment. Not always, of course. Life is never and always. But very often we see this pattern. The person who has buckled under the strain, who has waged personal struggles, can become the kind of person who is sensitive to the stress in others and able to serve their needs. Compassion is often found among those who have been wounded. On Easter Sunday, we talked about new life and whether or not we believed new life was for us. How hard it is to believe that new life is really going to happen in our lives and experiences. But as I read the story of Peter this week, I wondered if we have so much trouble believing in our own new lives because we keep thinking of new life as a one-time event, rather than the path, the journey on the road of Jesus. Peter's new life began step by struggling step. Over time, through events, over years of listening to Jesus, and then years of serving Jesus. Maybe if we start remembering that new life is a journey, not a destination or a finish line, we'd be better able to see new life at work in our own experiences. And for each of us, though we may be on the same road, followers of the same Jesus, our new life experiences can be as similar or as different from Peter, even though we are going the same way. All thanks be to God. Amen.